Hello and welcome to a new Ukraine war update. It has been quite some time since the last update, and today we have a lot of incredible footage to go through. A short disclaimer, this is a cut version. The full 30-minute long version is available on my private Telegram channel. The link is in the description. If you appreciate the effort I put into this video, please show it with a like and comment. It really helps me out a lot. Thank you. On the northern front, Ukrainian drones captured a Russian company-sized mechanized assault on the Ukrainian-held town of Sinkivka in an attempt to block the city of Kupiansk. We can see an armored column of about 10 armored vehicles consisting of 2 tanks and at least 8 BMPs loaded with infantry advancing through the woods towards the town. The column is led by a tank equipped with a mine roller, and at first it seems the formation advances without facing any serious resistance. However, once the Russians reach the outskirts of the town and drop off the first soldiers in order to establish a foothold in the area, sporadic Ukrainian artillery fire begins to target the vehicles, and the Russians begin to break their formation. In a rather chaotic appearing attempt, the BMPs begin to drop off as many of the soldiers as fast as possible before starting an uncoordinated looking retreat back to their own lines. This leaves the infantry without any further visible support on the edge of the Ukrainian-held territory on its own. Here we can see them trying to get in the building as fast as possible after dismounting. Lucky for them, the Ukrainians did not manage to coordinate and concentrate their artillery fire fast enough, and they also had no FPV drones in the sky already. Otherwise, this temporary stalling here would have become a feast for target practicing. I think every artilleryman watching right now can confirm this. A Ukrainian BMP-2 was sent in to engage the Russian infantry, who was now on its own. We can see the BMP blasting the area with its 30mm cannon. One more attempt was started as a Russian infantry squad tried to occupy a tree line in front of the town, but they got hammered by artillery once they reached it. Seems at this time the soldiers had no armored support at all, since it was deemed too dangerous to dispatch more vehicles to assault the town. If we look at the map, we can see that overall the assaults had little effect besides adding the first couple of houses on the outskirts of the town to the grey zone. Not so in the Bakhmut area, where Russian forces managed to capture territory. Over the past weeks, Russian forces have intensified their offensive operations there by using a combination of ground assaults and artillery barrages. The capture of these positions around Bakhmut allows Russian forces to apply more pressure on the Ukrainian defenders. Geolocated footage indicates that recent gains have been made south of Spern, northeast of Bakhmut. Additionally, Russian forces have advanced southwest of the city in areas such as the Chornobylet's gardening community and Klishchivka's northwestern outskirts. The ongoing conflict in Bakhmut is emblematic of the broader struggle in the eastern regions of Ukraine, with both sides incurring significant losses and adapting their tactics to the challenging conditions of urban and positional warfare. The situation continues to evolve, with the Ukrainian forces demonstrating resilience in their defense efforts despite the advancements and sustained pressure from Russian forces. Still, the battle for Bakhmut is more than a fight for territorial control, it's a symbol of the broader conflict in Ukraine. Reports stated that Ukrainian forces in the Bakhmut sector are engaging in what's termed offensive defense. This strategy involves actively attacking the enemy at the first opportunity, suggesting a dynamic and responsive approach to Russian advances. Despite the challenging circumstances, Ukrainian forces are utilizing drones for assaults whenever the weather permits. Despite all this, there has not been much footage released from the recent battles so far besides the usual FPV drone videos and a few Russian released clips recorded during some of their small-sized mechanized assaults in the area. It seems that after the attempts to break through the Ukrainian lines with massive mechanized formations failed, the Russians now also started the same bite and hold tactics Ukrainian used after their summer offensive did not produce the outcome they hoped for. This means currently Russia focuses more on small unit-sized attacks rather than using large armored formations above company level. This approach is now also used on the Avdiivka front, where it produced marginal but still visible results around the city. Based on geolocated footage, Russia's main efforts currently are focused on 3 sides. One northwest of the town with focus on the small village of Stepov, southeast through the industrial zone, and in the south around the towns of Vodiane and Opetny. Over the last couple of weeks, the Ukrainian 47th Mechanized Brigade has released a number of videos showcasing the significant role played by American-made M2 Bradleys in the defense of Avdivka. The vast majority of this footage comes from surveillance drones overseeing the operations, as common for footage from the war in Ukraine. However, as you can see here, we also have a bit of ground footage from a camera strapped onto one Bradley defending the industrial zone of Avdiivka. From the footage released so far, it looks like the Ukrainians successfully made use of some of the many strengths of this infantry fighting vehicle. One would be its suitability for the use in a mobile defense. This involves quick local counterattacks involving the high mobility of available forces. Here we can see a quick reaction force in the form of a squad of Ukrainian soldiers supported by a Bradley during such a counterattack. It seems like the Russians tried to establish a foothold in the tree line in front of the soldiers, but faced heavy resistance. The video was filmed by the helmet cam of one of the soldiers and a drone that was also capturing footage from the engagement that took place on close range, showcasing the frightening suppression effect of the Bradley's 25mm cannon on screen here. You can see very well how it gives the Ukrainian soldiers freedom to maneuver while the Bradley covers the area in front of them with fire. Being well suited for defensive operations is one of the main attributes of NATO vehicles in general, as opposed to Russian ones, which are to large parts designed to be thrown forward into offensive operations. One of the other strengths of the Bradley is its accuracy paired with the range of its weapon systems. The M242 Bushmaster chain gun has an effective firing range of 3000 meters. In the following segments you can witness the aerial suppression the Bradley can provide on medium and even larger distances while maintaining its accuracy. I think, by watching the footage, you can guess that such fire makes it extremely difficult for any adversaries to maneuver freely under these conditions or do anything else besides taking cover. The M242 chain gun has a firing rate of 200 rounds per minute, and its high explosive incendiary trace rounds are devastating against dismounted infantry, but also light armored vehicles. Upon impact, the incendiary mixture disperses in a 5-meter radius. In the event that the projectile has not impacted at approximately 3000 meters, the mechanical fuse will self-detonate the round. In this clip we see a group of Russian soldiers trying to hide in a basement in the destroyed town of Stepov in order to gain a foothold in the town and expand their gains. In response, a Ukrainian Bradley is dispatched to foil the attempt. First, the Bradley drives over the entrance of the basement before it begins to use its cannon to hammer the area while deploying smoke to cover itself from potential fire from RPGs, ATGMs or FPV drone strikes. Over the last couple of weeks there have been a lot of such Russian attempts to gain ground with small unit-sized elements, marking a shift from the costly large-scale mechanized assaults we saw during the beginning of Russia's offensive. Stepov in particular is currently one of the most contested places in the Avdiivka sector, and turned into a grey zone between Ukrainian and Russian-held territory that sees constant Russian pushes the Ukrainians try to repel by using Bradleys, drones and artillery. This video, which shares similarities with the previous two clips filmed in the same vicinity, provides the Russian perspective of a Bradley attack this time. It was filmed a few weeks ago and shows the Bradley getting hit by what I believe was an FPV drone afterward. However, more Russian drone footage from the area also shows a number of abandoned Bradleys. But since it has started snowing, there was no fresh footage of lost Western gear in this sector besides this video here showing a hit on a Bradley causing the vehicle to start burning, but maintaining its mobility before the video cuts. Unclear if it got destroyed or was abandoned. The vehicle kept moving for quite some time after it started burning, however. It could have made it back for repairs, but as said, the exact outcome is not clear. This is a truly unique video. It shows a Ukrainian Bradley engaging a Russian BMP from close range. The BMP tries to get away by leaving the area, but gets hit by an Ukrainian FPV drone shortly afterwards. This is definitely one of the rarer clips we get to see from this war, and sadly the footage is not available in better quality or from the perspective of the Bradley. Still worth sharing in my eyes. It is really interesting to see this machine finally facing direct combat. This of course only from a data science point of view. Despite the overall well performance of the Bradley IFV during the battle for Avdiivka so far, Russia still managed to capture at least one of the vehicles and later displayed it on Russian state TV. They can be assured that they will closely examine the vehicle. What do you think about the Bradley's performance here so far? Let me know in the comments. Russian forces also managed to disable at least one Ukrainian Leopard 1. The tank was operating alone and came under artillery fire. After being hit, the crew left the vehicle and abandoned it. In addition, also footage from FPV drone strikes on a Leopard 2A4, a German-made Mother IFV and a Striker were released by pro-Russian Telegram channels. The vehicles look like they were abandoned as well. Except the Leopard 1 video, the other footage has been attributed to the Zaporizhia front and the video clips were all released in December. The Leopard 1 clip is reportedly from Avdiivka. Unlike the Bradley, we haven't seen much footage of Mothers and Strikers in action so far. Speaking of FPV drone strikes, this helmet cam video shows a pair of lucky Russian soldiers on an ATV evading a Ukrainian FPV drone. As you could see, the drone was visible for a short time before it missed the two soldiers. Here we see a Russian soldier jumping over MTLB that was transformed into a VBIED in order to break through the Ukrainian lines in Avdiivka. Basically, the vehicle was loaded up with explosives to be remotely detonated as close to Ukrainian positions as possible. However, the attempt failed and the MTLB drove onto a mine and exploded. Using VBIEDs as enabling element is a tactic from the Syrian civil war. This helmet cam footage shows Ukrainian soldiers from the 3rd Separate Assault Brigade trying to shoot down Russian FPV drones targeting their trenches. We can see one of the drones hitting the ground and exploding close to the trench of the soldier filming. This was most likely filmed in the area southwest of Bakhmut where the 3rd Separate Assault Brigade is operating. It has been quite some time since I have shared footage from them, and this clip is quite interesting in my opinion. It shows the difficulties that come with trying to intercept these small, fairly cheap drones, especially with small arms fire. The best way to counter these drones is with electronic warfare systems and jammers trying to block the frequency of the drones, and here we see the effect of such a system in action. You can see the drones losing control and the disruption of their live feed. However, these systems most likely block everything on a certain frequency and also affect friendly electronics, making them a double-edged sword. This footage here shows Russians testing rockets fired from a FPV drone. It is pretty interesting how both sides constantly trying to improve these small aerial vehicles by looking for new ways to use them as offensive weapons. However, so far these are only concepts that have not seen real use so far as I know. This thermal footage filmed by a Ukrainian drone of the 47th Mechanized Brigade shows a platoon of Russian MTLBs driving into an M2 Bradley ambush in Avdiivka. We can see the vehicles being engaged by the Bradley's 25mm cannon from the side. MTLBs are fairly thin armored and the 25mm rounds most likely went through the hull like a knife through butter. I think from all the recent footage we saw of the Bradley so far, it is safe to say that the vehicle proved its worth once again and played a huge role in delaying the Russian offensive in Avdiivka. Or what do you think? In the area of Marinka and Novomikhailivka, Russia also made progress as shown here. They captured about 90% of Marinka and closed in on Novomikhailivka where, for now, they failed to break through the Ukrainian lines however. Currently Novomikhailivka faces heavy Russian bombardment with artillery and Fab 500 glide bombs, as this footage recorded by a Russian drone shows. This here were most likely thermobaric. This grainy helmet cam video shows a reportedly failed Russian assault northeast of Novomikhailivka. It seems like the assault was conducted by 1 to 2 infantry squads with 2 APCs, from which the rear vehicle is an MTLB for sure. According to the source of the video, the other vehicle was a BMP-3, but this cannot be confirmed. The Russians are clustered on the top of the vehicle as it moves forward into a snowy open field. Suddenly the lead vehicle gets disabled by a mine. The men quickly dismount in an attempt to gain distance from the vehicle in the case an FPV drone strike or an ATGM attack follows. One of the men stumbles and falls into the snow, but overall everyone seems to be okay. After it looked like the men were about to retreat for a moment, the unit commences their attack again. The Russian wearing the camera moves forward and engages non-visible Ukrainian troops that, if there, are most likely in entrenched positions in front of them. For this he uses a disposable rocket launcher before pushing further up in an attempt to fire and maneuver. His squad follows him, but the terrain offers basically no cover and the visibility is horrible, not only because of the camera. The men here are Russian Marines from the Cascade Main Battle Task Force of the 155th Guards Naval Infantry Brigade, assigned to the Pacific Fleet. The fighters continue to advance with fire in what looks like a bounding maneuver until the Ukrainian response intensifies, and they are soon forced to hit the snowy ground in order to avoid the incoming Ukrainian small arms fire. The advance begins to slow down due to the unfavorable terrain for the attackers and heavy Ukrainian resistance. One Russian exposes himself for too long and gets KIA. The video overall shows that fighting under snowy conditions presents various challenges that can complicate military operations. Although snow can offer inherent camouflage, it simultaneously restricts the options for concealment. Troops may encounter difficulties in effectively hiding in a predominantly white setting, heightening their susceptibility to enemy detection and fire. Also, snow can hinder the progress of both vehicles and infantry, resulting in a slowdown or constraint on the maneuverability of military units. Roads may become inaccessible, and navigating off-road can pose challenges, impacting the capability to carry out strategic and tactical plans. What is notable is the lack of any support assets available for the Russians. Neither artillery nor other heavy weaponry was backing their assault. Additionally, it seems the Russians had no radios with them. Being caught like this in the open without any further support left them no option but to stop their attempts and fall back. They likely had to retreat, most likely on foot, which made them vulnerable to FPV drones or drone-dropped grenades. However, it seems their luck was that the weather was too bad to effectively deploy these assets. After I cut, the video depicts the men in a defensive position, but still under fire as it seems. Unclear if they took more losses than the one we saw before. It has been quite some time since we have seen Russian helmet cam footage that is longer than a few seconds. As said, this attack failed and the town is currently still under Ukrainian control. Another thing this video shows very well is one of the major weaknesses that come with these isolated small unit-sized assaults aiming of taking ground feet by feet. It is challenging to build up enough pressure, and without the effective use of combined arms tactics, making a significant impact or achieving guaranteed success is quite difficult. Not that there is a guaranteed formula for success, but I hope you understand what I mean. On the Kherson front, Ukraine still holds its bridgehead and its foothold in Sinkivka and defense against Russian counterattacks, even if it's reported that Ukraine's losses are high. This helmet cam footage filmed by a Ukrainian Marine claims to show a firefight with Russian troops in the woods in that area, but overall there was not much usable footage released from that part of the front, and most videos are from artillery or drone strikes. It is pretty hard for the Ukrainian troops to expand their foothold and gain more ground since they are only able to bring infantry on foot over the river and did not manage to bring heavy equipment into the fight to penetrate the Russian lines. The Russians on their side make heavy use of drones, artillery and glide bombs to constantly hammer the Ukrainians. It has to be said that it is extremely difficult to cross the river with amphibious armored vehicles since any attempt gets constantly countered by FPV and Lancet drones, as this Lancet strike on a Ukrainian BTR shows. There have been reports that Ukraine managed to protect their troops to some degree with electronic warfare systems, but the situation stays difficult. Helmet cam footage from the Kremlin front shows Ukrainian Azov members in a woodland firefight with Russian troops. According to the Ukrainians, the engagement took place on close range with only 40 meters distance between them and the Russians. As of August 2023, they were engaged in combat operations in the Serebryansk forest area near Kremlin. According to National Guard spokesperson Mykola Urshilovich, Azov fighters have inflicted significant losses on Russian manpower and equipment and have maintained their occupied lines. The Azov Brigade has a notable history in the Ukraine conflict, having participated in the defense of Mariupol and the final siege at Azovstal. Following the surrender of the Azovstal garrison on the orders of Ukraine's top leadership in May 2022, several Azovstal commanders were taken prisoner by Russian forces. These commanders were later sent to Turkey as part of a large-scale prisoner exchange between Ukraine and Russia in September 2022. Reports from the Institute for the Study of War indicate that Russian units fighting along the Svka Kremlin front line include mobilized soldiers from the Moscow region and elements of the 144th Motor Rifle Division and the 8th Combined Arms Army. This mix of forces suggests that Russia is pulling troops from various locations to compensate for the degradation of its conventional units. Kremlin's strategic importance is underscored by its location in the Luhansk region, near the administrative border with the Donetsk region. Russian forces have made confirmed advances in the vicinity of Kremlin. Geolocation footage from the 24th of December indicated Russian troops making progress east of the village of Terny, located west of Kremlin. This advancement is part of a broader pattern of positional engagements along the entire line of contact between Russian and Ukrainian forces. The combat in and around Kremlin involves waves of Russian infantry pressing the Ukrainian lines, often involving mobilized soldiers followed by more experienced fighters. This indicates a strategy of attrition on the part of the Russian forces. The original video on the Azov channel is 13 minutes long, but I included only parts of it since the update is already big enough and overall the footage did not show much besides the woodland firefight. Perhaps it is interesting to say that woodlands offer natural cover and concealment, making it difficult for combatants to spot each other. Trees, bushes, and uneven terrain can obscure lines of sight. The environment is conducive to ambush tactics and flanking maneuvers. Combatants can use the natural foliage to hide and launch surprise attacks. If you like this update and the effort I put into it so far, please show so by giving this video a thumbs up. This and leaving a comment really helps it being shown to a larger audience, since such interactions show the algorithm that the video is worth watching and should be shown to more people. Thank you very much. This truly impressive footage recorded by a Turkish sailor shows an immense amount of Ukrainian anti-aircraft tracer fire during a Russian drone attack on the Ukrainian city of Odessa. According to the Ukrainian Air Force, the attack was conducted by 46 Iranian-made drones, from which 32 got shot down. These attacks indicate a continued and targeted use of drone technology by Russian forces, focusing on critical infrastructure and civilian areas in the Odessa region. Once more, Ukraine also released a few pretty interesting HIMARS rocket launcher videos showing ATACMS and GMLRS strikes on Russian equipment. In this clip we can see 3 HIMARS launching 3 ATACMS somewhere in Ukraine. They have a maximum range of 300 kilometers and carry a WDU-18 500 pounds class blast fragmentation warhead. Here we have a rather rare HIMARS GMLRS hit on what looks like a Russian Mi-8 helicopter that landed in a field in Ukraine. The quality of the footage is bad, however. Here we can see another GMLRS destroying an anti-air defense system that tried to hide itself in a tree line. Shortly after, a Russian helicopter is sent in to evacuate the crew. Luckily for the helicopter, it was not targeted by another GMLRS this time. While the rockets here could also have been fired by M270, my bet is still on the HIMARS. Do not ask why, that is just a gut feeling. This here is the most interesting HIMARS clip I saw recently. It pretty much shows the biggest strength of this system besides its range and accuracy. This strength is its speed and mobility. We can see the HIMARS conducting a fire mission somewhere in Ukraine before relocating. The whole thing is filmed by a Ukrainian drone and shows Russian counter-battery fire shortly after in an attempt to take the HIMARS out what failed. So far there is still not a single confirmed loss of a HIMARS system in Ukraine, and this video shows why. First of all, Ukraine takes extremely good care of each one of their HIMARS, and second, the concept of mobile wheeled artillery works very good against counter-battery fire. That's why the M in HIMARS stands for mobility. This crazy video shows a Russian Grad system nearly shooting down a friendly Su-25 passing over it during a fire mission in what must have been intended to be a propaganda video. The radio chatter was also released and translated by the Ukrainian blog War Translated, but hear for yourself.
Маяк, на работу пойдешь, давайте право крутить. Маяк, на номере. Я у тебя сзади справа, мне немножечко неудобно, я левым пойду. Хорошо, тогда это... Я между вами и сзади на метрах 300. Да, я понял. Пошли левым. Я пошел левым на работу. РТЗО работает. Наблюдаю, блядь. Майку. Ответил. Ну передайте, вот прям перед 8-й град он работал. Прям перед 8-й. Ну вообще уже не в такие ворота.
Two worlds collided as this drone from the Ukrainian 30th Brigade's aerial reconnaissance unit spotted and engaged a Russian World War I era Maxim machine gun with a drone drop grenade. Speaking about things from the past, this recently released video from February 2022 shows the downing of a Russian Kf-52 helicopter by Ukrainian manpads. The whole thing was recorded from the cockpit of another Kf-52. The following 2 videos will also be archive footage that was just recently released, however, from which especially the second one would be pretty interesting in my humble opinion. This archival footage here shows a Russian low-level bombing run on Ukrainian positions in the Kherson region. Strongly looks like the jet used unguided bombs for this mission. Shortly after, a second Russian fighter jet approaches from another angle and also drops unguided bombs. This kind of attacks are not that easy anymore, and even back then this was pretty risky for the jets. This Russian T-72 tank was taken out by what has been reported as a Ukrainian T-64 tank in the Bakhmut area. First, it can be that the tank drove onto a mine and was then engaged by semi-effective Ukrainian RPG fire as seen here. The tank gets engaged once more but is missed. Unclear what was used here. Just a few seconds later, another hit. We can see the Ukrainian T-64 extremely close behind the disabled Russian tank as it aims and fires. Looks like the ammo storage got hit and the Russian tank engulfs in flames as the ammo cooks off. The Ukrainian tank gets targeted by a Russian anti-tank guided missile that lands close in front of it. Another anti-tank missile is fired, and shortly after even a third one. These 2 also closely missed the tank, who must have had its lucky day. It directly drove into the crossfire of 3 Russian anti-tank guided missile positions, and not a single one hit. Considering how well these missiles usually work against tanks, this can be considered to be really rare footage. This picture shows the position of the launchers in relation to the tank.